This whole thing started as just a bench, a place to sit, a place to pause, a place to talk things out, even if nothing got solved. No audience in mind, no big plan, just somewhere to unload what was heavy and keep moving forward. Welcome to the bench session, where we unload the weight one session at a time. I'm Juan, and this is a space for real talk, the kind that doesn't always make it into group chats or gym conversations. There's no guests, there's no filters, it's just me, a mic, and my truth. Let's get into it, shall we? Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the bench session. All right, lately I've been thinking about how I started all this. Not just the podcast, but the idea behind it, my reasonings. So the bench was never about answers at all. It was about space. A space to slow down, a space to notice things, a space to say things out loud instead of carrying them alone and just weighing myself down. What this podcast became, somewhere along the way, the conversations got a little bit deeper. Not because I planned it that way, but because, life has a way of bringing things up when you finally stop running. I had this notion that I didn't have a set audience in mind other than men because I'm a guy and we carry so much in our heads. We have the pressure, we have identity issues, we have things that we have to worry about. Some of us lack discipline, things not working out the way you thought they would. And, none of it wrapped up neatly. And honestly, that's probably how it's supposed to be. I've learned so much just sitting here, talking with you guys, whoever's listening, whoever's following, whoever isn't following, and just, stops in and listens to the podcast. And I went through a lot during this whole podcast recording. Not just, a lot with the podcast, a lot with my life, and a lot with my career. Self-discovery, I guess you can call that. I had failures. I had a lot of failures. I had drama, but most of my failures were without drama, honestly. A lot of people think that failure has to be loud and catastrophic, but most of the time it isn't. Most of the time it's just quiet. It shows up as plans changing or pivots that you didn't ask for, as moments where we realize, okay, this is not how I thought it would go. Like you guys, my social media stuff, and that didn't really go the way I thought it would. This podcast didn't really go the way I thought it would. And for the podcast aspect, I think it went a little bit better than I originally had in my mind. But, it doesn't mean that it's the end of anything. It just means that something new is asking for my attention or asking for your attention in your life if you're trying something and it doesn't really work out. Excuse me. But realistically, this has become not just for men anymore. As I got deeper into these conversations and the more I started listening to the episodes and the more the conversations were going, it became more of people needed to hear this, not just men. Not just men who carry things alone and remain silent, but people in general, because a lot of this stuff that affects all of us in some way, shape, or form. So it's not just men anymore. It is society. We have so many different expectations on people that society puts on us, both men, women, children, everybody. So the podcast kind of evolved on its own. And, one thing I've learned through all of this is how easy it is to live anywhere except for the present. We run through things and we replay them when they didn't work out. We overthink things of what to do next. And we forget about the now. there's a saying that says the past is history, tomorrow's a mystery, but now is a gift, because that's why it's called the present. And a lot of us tend to overlook these things, and we focus so much on the future. We focus so much on the past and, trying to correct our mistakes so we don't do them again. And do you know what? We forget to be in the moment. And that's the moment, the now is the only place you actually have any control is right here, right now. And that's what the bench taught me that. It taught me that as I was going over everything and discussing issues, I realized that, you don't just sit on a bench to rush. You sit there to be where your feet are, to sit there and think and focus on the present. This podcast, this season, I guess you want to call it, it wasn't about figuring life out. It wasn't any about that. It wasn't I was going to have the answers for anybody or for even myself. It was none of that stuff. It was, honestly, it was becoming more aware, and not just aware of your surroundings, becoming aware of patterns that are in your life, patterns that you're creating for yourself, being aware of the pressures that you put on yourself, the pressures that society puts on you. Being aware what actually matters when all the noise dies down. We have such chaotic lives. When we come home, we just want to relax. And it's in those moments that we figure out what actually matters. Awareness doesn't fix everything, but it just, it changes how we carry things. And sometimes that's enough. That's enough. That's all we need, just to look at things differently. There's another saying that goes something like, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that's, in my mind, that's 100% truth, because from anybody in the outside world or anybody looking at my life, for example, objectively, they can say that I have so many things to be grateful for, so many things that I'm blessed with, so many things that I have going. And for me on the inside, knowing my struggles and knowing how I feel, I don't see that most of the time. And it's something that I became more aware of as I was going through these episodes. The more I talked about things, the more I realized, my life is not where I want it to be, but it's not worse off. It's not horrible, and I think that's a lot of us think that way. And the funny thing is, if we had the ability to, make a wish where we would be exactly where we wanted to be, exactly where we thought our lives would be, and if we made that wish and all that stuff came true, we probably wouldn't be happy with that anyway. We would probably still be thinking of something else. So it's one of those, why worry about things that you don't have and forget about the things that you do have. I have a home. I have a career still. I have this podcast. I have you guys. I have family. I have kids. I have friends. I am blessed, not in a religious way, but I'm blessed. I'm for the lack of a better word, you can say I'm rich. I may not be rich in money, but I'm rich in everything else. And realistically, that should matter more. And I came to realize a lot of this stuff as like I said, as we're sitting here on this bench just talking, and the more you sit and talk, the more the mind starts realizing things, and the more I started to open up, the more I started to see patterns. And honestly, when this all started, I didn't like the person that I was. I didn't like the situation I was in. The person looking back in the mirror was a total stranger to me, and I hated looking at myself in the mirror. And there were some dark times in my life recently, and I came through them. I came out better on the other side, and I like who I'm becoming. I realize that I'm not done being here, I'm not done growing, I'm not done changing, I'm not done evolving. Everything kind of collapsed for me for a little bit there, and that kind of stuff would, it rocked me in so many ways, and it felt horrible, and I felt lost and confused and didn't really have any direction. I wouldn't say I had like a midlife crisis because I'm not middle-aged. I don't care what anybody says. I'm nowhere near that age. But everybody goes through these things in life, and the more we try to chase perfection, the more it eludes us, and the more we miss out on things that are happening right now. We're missing out on the present. We're missing out on, for a reference so you guys can understand, sometimes we miss the flowers. We miss the smell of the flowers as we're rushing through the streets, rushing through the garden. We miss the smell of nature, the smell of life. Sometimes we chase things that we think we need, and in reality we don't. I mean, honestly, guys, when was the last time you guys sat and watched the sunset without having to worry about anything? Or watched the sunrise, or just sat with your partner and be in the moment? I can guarantee that not many people would say they've done that recently. And it's something that affects society. We're so quick to always look for the next thing, chasing the next thing, chasing this, chasing that, chasing happiness, chasing glory, chasing whatever. But realistically, the more we chase, the less we have. And the things that we want, success, whatever that means to you, happiness, whatever it is you're chasing, it's like a cat. The more you chase, the faster it runs off. And if you focus on something else, it will fall into your lap. So think about that. The more we're chasing something, the further away it gets, versus just focusing on what we need to do and focusing on the now, and the rest just will fall on your lap. Happiness will come to you. That's what I've come to realize as we're going through these episodes. And if this bench has taught me anything, is that I hope it's been a reminder that you don't need to have it all together. Sometimes you can just sit down and think. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need certainty. You just need a willingness to pause and be honest about where you are, and be honest about who you are. You are where you are because of the decisions you made. And we have to live with those decisions, whether we like them or not. And you know what? I've made my decisions. I may not be where I wanted to be. The decisions that I made were probably not the best ones in the world, but they were the best ones at that moment in time. There's nothing in the past that I can change. There's nothing in the future that I can control right now. The only thing I can do is talk to you guys, sit at this bench, and be real. And that's what we've been doing this entire time. So, with that being said, this is the end. Not of the podcast. This is the last episode of this season. Not because the conversation is over, but because this chapter of my life is. This chapter of this podcast is over. This season was about sitting down and noticing things as they were happening. The next season, who knows what'll come up? It might be clearer. It might be a little quieter. It might be steadier. We'll just have to wait and see. Stick around because we're going to be back at the same bench with the same honesty. Thanks for sitting with me. Stay real. Stay grounded. And I'll catch you guys very soon.